Welcome to Module 1, Background. We're going to look at the properties, the production and use of asbestos, and its effect on human health. What is asbestos? Asbestos is a highly heat-resistant, fibrous silicate mineral that can be woven into fabrics and bonded with other materials. So it's a naturally occurring mineral that actually comes from the ground. Although it gets used, obviously it gets manufactured into products, it starts its life within the ground. So I'd like to point out to you that you can see fibrous silicate mineral is actually highlighted in yellow there. So when we come to the assessment questions at the end of the module, you'll be wishing you'd remembered the yellow writing. So just a little bit of a hint. Fibrous silicate mineral. There's two general classes of asbestos. Serpentine, and if we look at the top photograph there, you can see like the wool-like fibres. And also amphibole. And look at the bottom photograph, you can see the needle-like fibres, which are going to be very damaging in our lungs. This is a very good question. So how small can asbestos be? Let's just say it's in a dust format. So they can be less than 1 micron in diameter. What actually is a micron? So a micron is 1,000th of a millimetre. And when we look at the chart, a micron is 1,000 of a millimetre, which is smaller than bacteria, red blood cells, smoke, white blood cells. Much smaller than the limit of visibility, pollen, human hair, table salt, beach sand and coffee grind. So you can see it really is small. And this really does matter because the fibres themselves then become respirable. Respirable means when we respire, we can actually breathe it in and take it deep down into the lungs. For dusts, they're either inhalable or respirable. If something is inhalable, then when we breathe it in, we're actually going to capture it in the mucous membranes of our nose and our throat, so then we can actually cough it up and spit it out. But if something is respirable, it's too small, it's going to get all the way down, right down into the gaseous exchange areas within the lungs, the alveoli. So it really is important that we understand that we can't actually see if asbestos fibres are in the air. Now, origins of asbestos. So as far back as 4000 BC, it's believed that asbestos hair-like fibres were used for wicks in lamps and in candles. It's a long time ago. And 2000 to 3000 BC, embalmed bodies of Egyptian pharaohs were wrapped in asbestos cloth to protect the bodies from deterioration. 456 BC, asbestos was used to wrap dead bodies who were then burned in a funeral pyre. So a funeral pyre is, if you imagine, like a big bonfire. I think we've all seen it on the films, whereby they lay the dead person onto the fire, and they obviously set the body on fire, and they burn as the fire burns out. That is known as a funeral pyre. Asbestos mining, as we can see from the photograph, and as we already know, asbestos is a naturally formed mineral. So it comes from the ground. So if we need to get it out of the ground, then we're going to have to mine it. Thankfully, more than 60 countries, including the UK, have full bans on asbestos. But in other countries, asbestos is still mined, still produced and still imported and exported from the countries. So that location there is in the city of Asbest, which is actually Russian for asbestos. That's a viewing platform, and you can see the people looking down into the deep mining. You can see the layers of mining that's been going on. So the United States still import and use asbestos, despite its recognition that it's carcinogenic. They do have federal laws that govern asbestos, but there's no generalised ban on asbestos. Fortunately, in the UK, asbestos was banned in 1999. Again, yellow writing indicating it's a good one to remember. So asbestos was banned in the UK in 1999. So that then tells us that any property built or furbished before 2000, whether industrial or homes, may contain asbestos materials. So it's important to know that date, 1999. That's when the ban was in the UK. So ACMs at work and in the home. ACMs, asbestos containing materials, once known as the magic mineral. Millions of tons of ACMs were made and used in construction and also in other industries, your gaskets, in engineering. And also many household items were also manufactured using ACMs, which we'll cover in the next module. In these photographs, we can see that even shoes, so asbestos shoes being made in the past, gloves, understandable. And we have Asbestolux here, which is like an asbestos insulating board. It's actually found itself into talcs historically. And also this is an interesting case here, whereby asbestos was actually used in between 1952 and 1956 as filters within cigarettes, because they would stop about 30% of the tar from being drawn into the body. And again, at that time, that was the only asbestos containing material that was actually put in the mouth, so making it even more dangerous. So we need to look at the health effects. Exposure to airborne asbestos can cause asbestosis, mesothelioma, lung cancer, and pleural thickening. So let's have a look at these a little bit closer. Asbestosis. So asbestosis, that's the name given to the lung disease caused by exposure to airborne asbestos fibres. Once the airborne asbestos fibres are inhaled and deposited in the lung tissue, over time they cause the lungs to become fibrous. Sufferers then find it difficult to breathe as the lungs do not function properly, and there is actually no cure for asbestosis. Lung cancer itself. Asbestos-related lung cancer looks the same as lung cancer caused by smoking and other causes. Another one for you to remember, in yellow, the risk of developing lung cancer from asbestos exposure is significantly higher if you are a smoker. On to mesothelioma, which is a cancer that forms in the protective tissues of the lungs or the abdomen. It's almost exclusively related to asbestos exposure, and by the time it is diagnosed, it is almost always fatal. So mesothelioma, a serious health issue from exposure to asbestos fibres. Pleural thickening. This is generally a problem that happens after prolonged exposure to asbestos, where the lining of the lungs thickens and swells. So after that, then the lung itself can be squeezed and sufferers again find it difficult to breathe. So those are the health effects. Just to look at some statistics from the HSE, over 5,000 asbestos-related diseases are caused each year, reported I should say every year, and over 2,500 deaths from mesothelioma. It does make for real serious reading. It's quite a hangover from the past. A terrible fact, on average about 20 tradespersons die each week in the UK. So you're thinking of your plumbers, your carpenters, those people working on the fabric of the building. And currently about 125 million people in the world are exposed to asbestos at the workplace, according to the World Health Organization. Serious statistics. So a slight recap before we move on to one of the videos. So a confirmation of knowledge, and I look forward to the assessment. What is asbestos? So asbestos is a highly heat-resistant fibrous silicate mineral. Remember, it's mined from the ground, it's naturally formed over time, and then it does get mixed with other ingredients to make up new materials. How big is asbestos? So a micron, so think about that, a micron is 1,000th of a millimetre. We looked at the chart, we saw a micron in comparison to the human hair, to red blood cells, and we recognise that it is respirable. It goes all the way down into the bottom of the lungs. It's not inhalable, where it would get caught on the mucous membranes. So how big is a micron? A micron is 1,000th of a millimetre. It's important to remember that asbestos, the use of asbestos was banned in the UK in 1999, and therefore if the building is built before the year 2000, we are going to be thinking there's a high possibility of asbestos within the building. And the risk of developing lung cancer from asbestos exposure is significantly higher if you are actually a smoker. So 4 things to remember when you go forward to your assessment. So look forward now, you're going to watch a video from WorkSafe BC.